Elena stood by the window of the pack house, watching the rain fall over the training grounds where she had once walked hand in hand with Damon. 3 years ago, she had believed that becoming his mate was the beginning of a beautiful life. Now, it felt like the slow ending of one. She was an Omega, gentle by nature, never one to raise her voice or demand attention. When the moon goddess had blessed her bond with Damon Blackwood, heir to the Blackwood pack, everyone had whispered that it was a rare and powerful match. Alphas did not often bond with Omegas. It was said to be a sign of a deep destiny. But destiny, Elena had learned, could be ignored by a heart that chose to look elsewhere. It started small. Damon began coming home late from pack meetings. He stopped asking about her day. He no longer sought her out during the full moon runs, when mates were supposed to stay close. Elena told herself it was pressure from his father, the pressure of becoming the next alpha. She made excuses for him, the way she always did. Then Vivian arrived. Vivian was a she-wolf from the Ashford pack, sent to the Blackwood territory under the pretense of forming an alliance. She was beautiful in a sharp, deliberate way, the kind of beauty that seemed designed to be noticed. From the moment she stepped into the pack house, she made sure Damon noticed her. Elena watched it happen slowly, like a storm gathering on the horizon. Damon began to smile more when Vivian was near. He listened to her opinions in pack meetings, praised her ideas, walked beside her instead of beside his mate. Elena told herself she was imagining things. She told herself the ache in her chest was simply exhaustion. She was wrong. One evening, Damon came home with news that shattered the fragile peace Elena had been holding on to. Vivian was pregnant, he said, and the child was his. Elena felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. She had been trying for years to conceive, and nothing had happened. The healers had told her the bond between her and Damon had never fully settled, which made conception difficult, though they could never explain why. She had cried over it in private, ashamed, feeling as though she had failed him. And now here he was, telling her that another woman carried what she could not. "I did not mean for this to happen," Damon said, though his voice held no real apology. "But I cannot turn away from my own child, Elena. You understand that." She did not understand, but she nodded anyway, because arguing had never done her any good. In the weeks that followed, Vivian moved into the pack house. Damon gave her one of the finest rooms, close to his own chambers. He began introducing her to pack members as though she already held a place of honor. Elena, meanwhile, was quietly moved to a smaller room at the end of the hall, one that had once belonged to a servant. The pack noticed, of course. Packs always notice. Some of the wolves looked at Elena with pity, others with disdain, as though her failure to conceive was a personal insult to the bloodline. Vivian, sensing the shift in power, grew bolder. She would touch Damon's arm in front of Elena, lean close to whisper in his ear, smile at Elena with a sweetness that never reached her eyes. "You must understand," Vivian told her once, catching her alone in the garden. "A pack needs an heir. You could not give him one. I can." Elena said nothing. She simply walked away, her hands trembling at her sides, refusing to let the tears fall until she was safely behind her door. Despite everything, Elena noticed things that others did not. She noticed that Vivian's scent, which should have shifted and deepened with pregnancy, remained strangely unchanged. She noticed that Vivian always found reasons to avoid the pack physician, claiming she preferred healers from her home pack. She noticed the way Vivian's hand sometimes rested on her stomach at odd angles, as though she were performing a role rather than living it. Elena kept these observations to herself. Who would believe her? She was the Omega who had been replaced, the one who could not carry a child of her own. Anything she said would be dismissed as jealousy. As the months passed, Elena's health began to decline. She had always felt a quiet warmth from her bond with Damon, even when he was distant, a small thread of connection that told her she was still his mate. Now that thread felt frayed, nearly severed. She grew tired easily. Her appetite faded. The healers whispered among themselves but could not explain what was happening to her. She did not know that her body was fighting something far greater than heartbreak. Damon, consumed by his infatuation with Vivian and the promise of an heir, barely noticed his mate's fading health. He was too busy planning for the future, a future he believed included Vivian at his side as Luna. He had already begun speaking to the pack elders about setting aside his bond with Elena, framing it as a necessary sacrifice for the good of the pack. The elders were hesitant. A true mate bond, blessed by the moon goddess herself, was not something to be dismissed lightly. But Damon was persuasive, and his position as heir gave him influence few dared to challenge. The blood moon ceremony was approaching, a sacred night when the pack gathered to honor the moon goddess and renew their bonds beneath her light. It was traditionally a night of celebration, but Damon saw an opportunity in it. He decided that on this night, before the entire pack, he would formally reject Elena and declare Vivian as his intended Luna. Elena heard of his plan not from Damon himself, but from a servant who could not bear to see her humiliated without warning. She spent the days before the ceremony in quiet grief, saying goodbye in her heart to the life she had once hoped for. She thought of leaving, of running from the pack before the ceremony could take place. But something inside her, some quiet instinct she could not name, told her to stay, to face it, to let the truth reveal itself, whatever that truth might be. The night of the blood moon arrived cold and clear. The pack gathered in the ceremonial clearing, torches lit around a great bonfire, the moon hanging full and silver above them. Elena stood at the edge of the circle, her heart pounding, watching as Damon took his place near the fire, with Vivian close behind him. He began to speak the ancient words, the formal declaration that would sever his bond with Elena in front of the pack and the goddess herself. Elena felt each word like a blade, but she did not look away. She would not give him the satisfaction of seeing her break. But as the final words left his lips, something changed. The wind stilled. The torches flickered violently, then steadied into an unnatural silvery light. The bonfire's flames rose higher, twisting into shapes that seemed to breathe. Gasps rippled through the gathered pack. Even Damon faltered, his declaration dying in his throat. From the heart of the fire, a figure began to take shape, formed of moonlight and shadow, radiant and terrible in her beauty. The moon goddess had come. The pack fell to their knees, awe and fear mingling in the clearing. Damon stood frozen, his rejection unfinished, his mouth open with no words left to speak. The goddess's voice was soft, yet it carried across the entire clearing as though whispered directly into every mind present. "You seek to break a bond I myself have blessed," she said, her eyes settling on Damon. "Do you know what you have done?" Damon dropped to his knees, his earlier confidence crumbling. "Great goddess, I only wish to protect my pack, to ensure an heir." "An heir," the goddess repeated, and something like sorrow passed over her radiant face. "Let me show you the truth you refuse to see." She turned toward Vivian, who had gone pale, backing away toward the edge of the crowd. But there was nowhere to hide from the goddess's gaze. With a single gesture, the moonlight surrounding Vivian shifted, peeling away like a mask. The pack watched in horror as the illusion of pregnancy dissolved, revealing that Vivian's stomach had never truly changed at all. Cries of shock rose from the gathered wolves. Damon stared, uncomprehending, as the goddess continued. "This woman has deceived you," she said. "She sought the aid of a rogue witch to fake the signs of a child that never existed, and to weave a curse upon the bond between you and your true mate." The goddess turned her gaze to Elena, and warmth softened her radiant features. "The weakness you have felt, child, was not a failure of your body. It was a curse, slowly suppressing the bond meant to bind you to your mate, cast by dark magic, meant to hide the truth and steal what was never hers to take." Elena felt tears spill down her cheeks, not from sorrow now, but from the release of a burden she had carried silently for so long. She had not failed. She had been fighting a battle she never knew existed, and she had survived it. Vivian tried to flee, but the pack warriors closed in around her, their eyes burning with anger and betrayal. The rogue witch's magic, once a shield for her lies, could not protect her from the judgment of an entire pack she had deceived, nor from the will of the goddess who had exposed her. Damon turned to Elena, his face a mixture of shame and desperate hope. "Elena, I did not know. I was blind. Please, forgive me. We can fix this. We can start again." The moon goddess's voice cut through the clearing before Elena could answer. "A curse can be broken," she said, her eyes steady on Damon, "but trust broken by choice is not so easily mended. You did not need magic to turn away from your mate. You chose distance long before any curse took hold. You chose to believe a stranger over the wolf the stars themselves gave you. That choice was yours alone, and it is yours alone to carry. Damon lowered his head, unable to argue against words that held nothing but truth. The goddess's light began to fade, but before she disappeared entirely, she turned once more to Elena. You have shown strength few could match, enduring both curse and cruelty, without losing the gentleness of your heart. That strength is your own, Omega. It does not depend on any bond, broken or whole. With those words, the moonlight receded, and the clearing returned to ordinary night, though nothing about it felt ordinary anymore. In the days that followed, the pack dealt with the fallout of Vivian's deception. She was stripped of any standing she had gained, and cast out from Blackwood territory, sent back in disgrace to face judgment from her own pack for the harm she had caused. The rogue witch who had aided her was hunted down by the pack elders, her dark magic dealt with according to ancient law. Damon, humbled and shaken, tried again and again to reach Elena, to apologize, to beg for a second chance. Elena listened to him with a calm she had never known before. The fear of losing him, the desperate need for his approval, had faded along with the curse the goddess had lifted from her. She realized she had spent years shrinking herself to fit into the space he allowed her, and she no longer wished to live that way. I don't hate you, Damon, she told him one final evening, standing where they had once shared their first quiet moments together. But I don't trust you either. And a bond without trust is not something I want to hold on to, blessed or not. She did not ask the elders to force a reconciliation. She did not demand he be punished beyond what his own conscience already inflicted upon him. Instead, she asked for something simpler, her freedom to choose her own path. The elders granted her request, moved by all she had endured and by the goddess's own words in her defense. Elena stepped away from the shadow of a broken mate bond and began to build a life defined by her own strength, rather than her place beside an alpha. She trained alongside the pack healers, discovering a gift for helping others recover from wounds both seen and unseen. Slowly, the wolves who had once pitied or dismissed her began to look at her with genuine respect. Damon, meanwhile, carried the weight of his choices alone. He became a quieter, more thoughtful leader, haunted by the memory of a bond he had nearly destroyed with his own hands. He never took another mate, understanding at last what the goddess had tried to tell him that night beneath the blood moon. Some things, once broken by choice, could not simply be wished back together. As for Elena, she found peace not in vengeance or bitterness, but in the quiet certainty that she had survived a storm meant to break her, and had come out the other side stronger, wiser, and finally, truly free.